And this specific reason is why I hate Thor: Love and Thunder more than most people. What's up guys, welcome back to Superhero Legacy. My name is Liam, and in today's video I want to talk about Thor: Love and Thunder. And I know this movie came out a while ago, but I've been wanting to make this video for a while, so I'm finally doing it. Like most of you guys out there, I was deeply frustrated with this movie when it came out, and I was just very disappointed with what we actually got. So in this video, I want to talk about just why I hated this movie so much, more than most people probably do. I know it's not a very well received movie, but I intimately hate this movie. On my channel, I try to avoid posting videos that are kind of based off of negativity. That's not how I want to make content. That's not the type of person I want to be. And frankly, I don't hate a lot of things. You know me, I try to find the good in pretty much everything, but there was no good in this movie. I'm gonna let you guys know why I despise this movie so much, and you could probably guess, it's right here. This is the Thor by Jason Aaron Volume 1 Omnibus, and this is the book that Thor: Love and Thunder was based off of. There are many great runs on the character of Thor, however my favorite by far has to be this one. Thor by Jason Aaron was incredible. I have read the entire run multiple times. I just keep coming back to it over and over again because it is that good. It has phenomenal writing, gorgeous artwork, and there's a particular story in here that I'm going to talk about that is just genuinely epic. This book is essentially split up into two great stories. They're both really good, but the first one is my favorite. That one's the one that deals with Gorr the God Butcher, which is absolutely phenomenal and has gorgeous artwork by Esad Ribic, who's one of my favorite artists. The second story in this book is also really good, and it's going to be drawn by, I think, Russell Dodderman, and it's really good. It's called The Mighty Thor, and that one's the one that's going to introduce us to Jane Foster, who is our new Thor. But the one that I'm going to be talking about in this video is going to be the God Butcher arc, because that one's my favorite, and that's the one that they try to incorporate inside the movie that frustrated me the most. So I'm going to be talking about that story specifically. For those of you who don't know, Thor: Love and Thunder is my least favorite MCU movie, and it's kind of not even close. Like, it is for sure, 100%, definitely, no contest, my least favorite MCU movie. Some of you might be wondering, well, what about Iron Man 2 or Thor: The Dark World or Captain Marvel or Black Widow or The Incredible Hulk? Those are some of the ones that are regarded as the worst MCU movies, and Thor: Love and Thunder is also in that talk, but for me, by far, it's Thor: Love and Thunder. And the big reason here why those other movies don't quite reach as rock bottom as Thor: Love and Thunder for me is because of the excitement I had for Love and Thunder was through the roof. It had every reason to succeed, and it just didn't. This movie did more than just fail. It was disappointing, it was embarrassing, it was humiliating, and it was just a huge waste of potential. My expectations for this movie when it was coming out were pretty high. Like, Taika Waititi was coming off of Thor Ragnarok, which was a big hit. When I found out that Gorr the God Butcher was going to be the main villain for this movie, my hype level soared because I love this guy so much. I mean, he is one of the best Thor villains, probably one of the best Marvel villains that have come out in the last, I think, couple decades. Like, he was very well received and he was just epic. The way Jason Aaron introduced him was just perfect. And when I found out that it wasn't just going to be some random actor playing Gorr the God Butcher, but it was going to be Christian Bale, that was so exciting. Like, he is one of the best actors out there, and if anybody could pull off Gorr the God Butcher, it would be Christian Bale. And the other component that contributed to why my expectations for this movie were so high was the marketing, the trailers. All of the trailers for this movie were so well done. They were just so gorgeous, and I watched them over and over again, and they got me. They really did get me, because I thought this movie was going to be something else. It was going to be new and different, and I thought it was going to be really, really good. And it's just a great example of how trailers can be deceiving. But anyways, let me go ahead and talk about the comic for a little bit, because the Gorr the God Butcher comic is probably my favorite Thor comic that I have ever read. And I know there's a lot of other good Thor comics out there. Maybe I shouldn't say my favorite, because Walter Simonson's run on Thor was really good. But anyway, nonetheless, This story is insanely good, so let me go ahead and talk about it. So the first thing I want to note here is that the artist for this entire story was by Esad Ribic, who is one of my favorite Marvel artists. He has this gorgeous paint style that's not quite like Alex Ross, but it still is really good. It's very detailed, and he makes the action scenes a lot more visceral, and he just amplifies the quality of the story. One of the reasons why this story is so great is because it spans 3 different timelines, and it kind of interweaves these 3 generations of Thor together in this magnificent way where they all just come together eventually and fight against Gorr all together. It's awesome. We have a young Thor who is still like 1,000 years old, but he definitely lacks impulse control. Like, he just kind of seeks war and he doesn't really think that much. And it's pretty cool too, because this young Thor, he is not worthy of Mjolnir yet, so he carries around this giant axe instead because he's not able to access the power of Mjolnir. Then you have present day Thor, who's probably my favorite because he's just your standard typical Thor. And then of course you have older Thor, who is an absolute badass. Old Thor just straight up looks like Odin, and it's awesome. He is the ruler of Asgard now, so he's king, and the best part about it is he wields the Thor Force, which is absolutely crazy. Like, it's just the Odin Force, but now it's the Thor Force because he's the Allfather. It's so good. He's like rugged and beaten down. He's like old, tired, exhausted. He's like had it with life, but this guy keeps going. So the story switches between past, present, and future, and as you can see, the movie didn't do any of that. The sad thing here is though, Chris Hemsworth totally could have pulled it off. Like, he's a great actor and he has so much versatility, and he definitely could have been able to play a younger Thor, the present day Thor, and then an older Thor. He definitely could have done it, and I would have loved to see that, but it's all right. Another reason why I really like seeing all the different generations of Thor coming together is because you see the character growth that Thor goes through from being this young, impulsive, naive Thor who doesn't just think about things and wages war. Like, he's just a very immature Thor, and he grows up to be this very wise king, and it just shows the character development that he goes through, and it's incredible. But let me go ahead and talk about Gorr the God Butcher here for a little bit, because this is the main reason why I was so frustrated with the movie. And let me just preface this. Christian Bale was not the problem. He's a phenomenal actor, and I think he did the best with what he was given. So it is not Christian Bale's fault. It is just the writing, it's the character that I hate. One of the driving motivations for Gorr in the comic is that he was raised on this desolate planet with no food, just a very harsh environment. He watched everyone around himself die. He watched his mother die, he watched his wife die, and then he had to bury his son. He just had a very hard life, and his species, his tribe, just was withering away and perishing in these awful ways. And he thought if there were gods out there, if there were truly gods out there, they wouldn't allow this kind of stuff to happen. They would help them. And no God ever did. And so that is the basis for why he hates God so much, and he vows to butcher all of them. He really does have a motivation that's valid. You know, if gods were out there, why would anything bad ever happen to people? Like, it's a valid belief. And this character is so good in the comic because you actually feel for him, and it's impressive that you can feel for someone who literally butchers and massacres people in these terrible ways. And so that was the first missed opportunity there. I think they should have focused a little bit more on that. And I don't know, maybe if they didn't try to do the Gorr the God Butcher as well as the Jane Foster Thor arc together in this movie, they would have had more time to flesh out Gorr's part. So maybe they should have done that. But the main reason why people hated Love and Thunder and didn't invest into Gorr in the MCU was because he's called Gorr the God Butcher, yet we never saw him butcher any gods. That frustrates me so much because that's what gives him credibility. That's what makes us believe that he actually is dangerous and powerful and he's a real threat. If we see him butchering other gods, then we believe it. In the comic, they actually take time to show us this. Esad Ribic draws these amazing panels that shows all these gods and deities just being slaughtered in these horrific ways. It's terrifying. He's like ripping limbs off, he's hanging them on these giant metal hooks, he is actually like torturing them, and it's terrifying. And we never got to see this in the movie, so we never buy into why he's an actual threat, how powerful he actually is. Oh yeah, the other thing that I want to mention here is that the Gorr the God Butcher comic has this very mature tone. Like, there's not a hint of comedy in it. The movie drowned everything out in comedy and over-the-top humor, and was probably the worst thing about the entire film, and just made everything just cringy, and the stakes and the gravity, the urgency of Gorr was just non-existent because this funny tone was just drowning out everything else. Another thing here is that Gorr in the comics wields the Necrosword, which is what makes him so powerful. And I get it, it's technically a symbiote, so the MCU doesn't really have properties to it, so they couldn't make it a symbiote in the movie. But still, the Necrosword in the MCU was just this bland, lame-ass sword. Like, there wasn't even anything cool about it. Like, it didn't even look awesome. It was just a bland sword. Oh yeah, another thing, I'm just gonna keep thinking of things because I just hate this movie so much. Another thing here is that Gorr just looks awesome. Like, his design just looks incredible in the comics. I was not a fan of how he looked in the movie. He just kind of looked too humanoid for me. He just looked like Christian Bale and some makeup. Like, it didn't work for me. He didn't look scary enough. Also, his motive in the MCU movie just really didn't make any sense to me and was strange. Like, I don't know why they chose to go that way and bring in Eternity, because Eternity has no role in the actual comic. Instead, in the source material, Gorr is building this god bomb, which can literally wipe out all gods and all deities throughout time and space. I think that was the better way to go, and it's just cooler. But by far, the best part of this entire book is the climax. We have all 3 generations of Thor banding together, coming together as a team, and fighting Gorr the God Butcher in this awesome finale. It's like the coolest thing I've ever seen, and Gorr is like still clapping all 3 Thors. It's incredible. He's so powerful. Bro, the most badass scene of this entire story is when present day Thor picks up his hammer and old Thor's hammer, and he wields both of them and smashes them together. Oh, it's like the coolest thing I've ever seen. Dude has 2 Mjolnirs and he's like shooting lightning out of both of them. Dude, this page, Asad Ribic draws the hell out of the story. I'm telling you. I hope I'm doing this story justice. I can't talk higher enough about it. It's just one of the best Thor comics out there, and it's just truly epic. Gorr was such a compelling villain, and he was just so cool and awesome looking, and his badass factor was just through the roof. And in the movie, he was just and I think this all ties back to the main reason I hate Thor Love and Thunder, is because the expectations were so high for this movie. It had the source material, it had the characters, it had the actors, it had all the ingredients for a perfect movie, but it just failed. The reason why Iron Man 2, Thor the Dark World, The Incredible Hulk, Black Widow, all those movies aren't as low for me as Thor Love and Thunder is because the source material for Love and Thunder is so good. I'm a huge fan of this run and this story, and to see it adapted in this poorly executed movie was just very disappointing for me. As a comic book reader, I look forward to seeing comic stories being translated to the big screen in these awesome ways. That's the reason why Infinity War was so good, was because it was such a good interpretation from the Infinity Gauntlet storyline, and I just love seeing, you know, stories come to life. And in this specific case, Thor Love and Thunder just butchered, no pun intended, butchered the source material. You guys have to go read the story to understand just how good it is and how great a villain Gorr actually is. Because if you don't know Gorr and the only thing you really know of him is the MCU version of this character, it's disappointing. You're not getting the full totality of this character. He is so good in the comics and he was so bad in the movie. What's depressing as hell is that we'll probably never get to see the real Gorr the God Butcher story be adapted to the live action format anytime soon, if not ever. It was wasted. It was completely squandered, and I hate it for that. I know this movie came out a while ago, but I just still think about it sometimes, like, God, what a disappointment. How frustrating that is, because the story is so good, and I wish people could understand how great it was. You need to go read the comic. Just picture it. Just imagine in your head a younger Thor, a present day Thor, and an older Thor who wields the Thor Force. Imagine them coming together in this kind of darker, mature toned movie, fighting against a real Gorr the God Butcher who is dangerous, terrifying, and powerful. Just imagine that fight in the live action format and how awesome and totally epic that would be. It's sad. It's sad. I'd be lying if I said there weren't days where I just kind of stood there in the shower with my head down, letting the water drip off my face, just kind of thinking to myself, wow, we got that piece of trash. At the end of the day, these are the reasons why I hate Thor Love and Thunder so much. It's because Gorr was the main problem, but the comedy definitely drowned it all out, but it was Gorr. Gorr didn't look cool. He wasn't dangerous, he wasn't terrifying, he didn't have credibility because he didn't butcher anyone. It was just completely frustrating. As a comic book fan, I live for seeing these fictional characters being brought to the big screen so that people can experience them, the totality, the greatness of them. And it's unfortunate, but in this case, Thor: Love and Thunder kind of tore down the superhero legacy. We need to build up the superhero legacy. That's what we're trying to do. Man, I'm on fire here. Anyway, I'm gonna end the video right here. I could talk about why I hate this movie for days. There are a whole lot of other reasons why I hate this movie, but Thor the God Butcher is pretty much the big part. I do want a Thor 5, and I do want Chris Hemsworth coming back to play him, but I don't think that Taika Waititi should come back to direct the movie. And if he does, I think he needs a total change in the tone of these Thor movies. I was not a big fan of the switch to comedic Thor because that's just not the version of the character that I know and love from the comics. He isn't supposed to be a funny character. He's supposed to be a more serious Thor, and that's the reason why I like the first Thor movie a lot. They need to bring it back to a more serious Thor, and I think that's the best move, because the reason why the first two movies aren't regarded as very good. I mean, I like the first Thor, but the reason why a lot of people don't like them isn't because the tone, isn't because of the serious tone, it's because it didn't have a good narrative, it didn't have good villains, it wasn't compelling from a story standpoint. They didn't need to make him funny, they just needed to give him a good story, and if they do that for Thor 5, then I'm all in, but we can't have another Thor: Love and Thunder scenario. I can't do it, guys. So that's going to do it for this video, guys. Please like and subscribe for more superhero content, and share your thoughts of Thor: Love and Thunder or the Thor the God Butcher arc from the comics down in the comments below. You can check out some of my other videos right over here, but for now, thank you so much for watching and stay super.